You ready? Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order. Tom will be taking the minutes. Thank you, those in attendance. First order of business on the agenda, and there are a few agendas around the table, is to review the minutes of the last meeting. And it doesn't, Tom sent them out to the members of the committee and others in attendance, shortly after the last meeting. Does anyone want those last minute meetings minutes read? If no one wants them read, is there a motion to approve them as written?
Motion to approve.
Sal makes it, and Scott made a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the minutes of July 24th are approved. The revised minutes of July 24th, revised as Tom sent them out, are approved as written. And back to the agenda. We're here today to review the needs for capital equipment for police, fire, ambulance, and EMD. And after we do that, then the only other thing will be to confirm our plans for future meetings, the dates and the departments to be discussed. So with that, if Chad is ready, we can start with, I don't know if you want to go, you choose Chad, police, fire, EMD, it doesn't matter who do you think we should go first?
Well, we can start with ambulance.
All right,
We'll
let's
go
start
from
with
there.
ambulance and yep.
Basically, where we are with that, when you look at the proposed plan from a couple of years ago, which is not reacting on the board for some reason. We have an ambulance that's currently ordered this year, and the next one isn't shown till 2031. So basically what we're going to be talking about primarily is and this is from the old plan as it sits. And we basically match that with the new program, looking at what it should be for. This is really fun. What it should be, what our appropriation should be, and is there any other ads? The one thing that Jordan has brought to my attention is that one thing that meets the qualifications for capital that I don't believe has been included to this point, is where to go? If I can find myself, there it is going to be the stretchers. Okay, because they are all at about $27,000. So, and they have a life, they meet the definition of a capital item. So
You're proposing to add them to the plan.
yes, I
Yes.
got the information today, and we're gonna be adding those to the
Okay.
plan. And what I don't remember is the timing of where you think we are with replacement.
So
for
if I
that.
remember correctly, we were doing a 15-year plan with the ambulances. That,
Ambulances or stretchers?
oh, was
He-
this what you were talking about?
Ambulance
Stretchers?
and
He just
stretchers.
brought up- Okay, so,
So ambulance and stretchers, but our stretchers have been prolonged, so we got 2 new ambulances in 16 and 17, yes, or 15 and 17, and those were never replaced, so they're overdue. But I'd like to just.
you
keep
mean
them-
those stretchers?
Those
That's
stretchers.
correct, so the
Replaced.
ambulances replaced, the cots and slash stretchers were
Right,
not replaced,
right.
so every 15 years on the plan, I think it's listed as 20. But I just would like to go back to the 15. The
And I,
monitors were on a 10 and then the 15 was the three.
yeah, I agree with
But
that.
none of that is in the plan as.
Well, right now, the way
No, yeah,
we're sitting right now
right,
is they are in this plan, which was in the program, they're listed as 15-year cycles.
well, they're not in what you sent out yesterday at all yet, right?
No, they're in there.
Oh, they're in there?
Yeah,
I'm
if you go to the equipment worksheet,
Oh, I was
Yeah.
looking at the capital budget sheet.
well, you can look,
I see
if you look at the
monitors.
capital worksheet,
It's
yeah.
That doesn't.
There's
give
no
you the
line there
equipment.
for them
Take
yet.
his lead, go to the equipment worksheet, because that's. what we're
Okay,
talking about.
fine. How,
I'm gonna shut this light off because you can see the board
see better, yeah. Now, there's supposed to, should be a place on the other one that says pull forward from the.
So what you do, what you have, with the way this works, and we're gonna go through this for the first time.
Yep.
When you look at the capital worksheet, that is the overview sheet for the entire capital plan.
Yep.
And what you will see under emergency medical services equipment is the items that were in there in the past. That's what's in there today. Okay, and on the back sheet on the equipment worksheet is
Ah.
where those vehicles are calculated.
All right,
Okay, so when you look at the monitors, there's $140,000 worth of monitors. One ambulance is 231,000, and the other two were listed at 345 at the time. That's the 2017. And then the next replacement year, anything we've have in the program for a replacement year has its next time we're gonna buy it, which would be the one that was bought in 2015 is listed as 2030.
Yeah, the only other thing with the ambulances is that our new one that we just got was a different style ambulance, and it's gonna be nowhere near 350,000, but I don't know if that's something we're just gonna plan for and then change later.
Well, at this point, we're gonna update it to the new number. And then we gotta say, with the other two ambulances, what are their current replacement costs? The goal of this program is, what is the replacement cost that we know today, if you were to replace it today, because there's an inflation factor that's added to this. So basically, if it's a $400,000 ambulance we put in, that's what it's gonna cost to replace that X amount of years from now.
I'd probably go closer to 5.
Okay, well, we can
Yeah,
talk about
okay,
that. This
okay.
is,
So,
this was just the first draft that we've put together. We actually, with this information that we have in this program today is everything that was in last year's capital plan that was done by the town, which was in a different Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
And now we've added these numbers, and part of what we're doing now is to say, okay, what do we really need to do with appropriations? When you look at this, we have a line at the bottom that you can barely see in right in the purple. Above the purple is $75,000 a year. If we were using this cycle the way it is with these pieces of equipment, that's what you have to put away every year to make that work. That's its purpose.
now, we have a couple of problems here. Most of the folks in the room cannot read what's up there now the way
Right.
it is. Gotta find a way to make that bigger.
Yeah,
Number one. Number two, you talked about several things in the last few minutes that frankly, I can't find, even though I have a version of that on here. For example, you talked about an ambulance that's on order. And I saw something on the capital budget worksheet, which shows a fiscal year 24 with a number. Is the number being 234,000? This is
Right.
on the sheet you emailed yesterday. And the first question would be, is that what it was ordered for, the 234,000?
This is last year's number, and we just put the year in because
So-
that's when all of this data, the 2024 year was on the plan
From
that's
last year's
existing.
plan.
Now these all have to be updated.
That was the next thing I was gonna ask. You were saying that these are last year's numbers. I thought the intent of this meeting today
Right.
was for the department heads and you to have reviewed prior to the meeting
Right.
what their current needs are to come and show them to us.
Current
We're not
needs,
seeing that, right?
you have current needs, okay, which is the ambulance that's on order. Okay, and I forget what we.
But is it in the
something.
spreadsheet?
Yeah, I'm trying.
It's there, but not the price isn't updated to the new
That's a
price.
problem.
Well, it's not a problem
okay.
because we're talking about it.
All right,
Remember, one thing we gotta keep in mind is there's two separate discussions to have in this. One is, what is the appropriation supposed to be? And that's when we get all the correct numbers in. And then there's what's the equipment needs, and we have to marry those. Today, with the conversation was about what are our equipment needs? We don't have replacement, like for all the fire trucks, we don't have current replacement numbers for all of those. We have what we had in the past. We gotta look at updating all of these numbers to make sure.
so if I may, I'm gonna disagree slightly. In my opinion, we only have a few of these meetings.
Right.
We only have one scheduled for police, fire, EMD, et cetera. We don't have an opportunity to work again at another meeting on this category. And our intention was to be able to have both of those ready for any given meeting for a certain department, to have both the need and the dollar values in there, so that this committee would have a chance to look at it.
Well,
That's what we've done in the past. We've looked
Okay.
at the need and the cost at the same meeting. Hopefully, in case of ambulance, would be once at this meeting
well, the
only.
reality is.
What
the
you're
reason-
saying is will require us to meet again, to
No,
look at numbers.
no, well, numbers, it's, when we meet the next time, those numbers will be updated. Cause the only thing you're looking at on this sheet for, let's say, ambulance, because you have the existing purchase that we have in process right now, is what should you be appropriating on an annual basis? That's what you're trying to
All right,
determine.
let's proceed, but it's not meeting my expectations. I'll say that for now. Go ahead, Sal.
Yeah, maybe we should just take it, slow down. a little.
Yeah.
Let's just go through,
Yep.
the spreadsheet
Well-
and say monitors.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So right now on the, equipment worksheet.
On
you
the
have,
equipment worksheet, all right, yep,
that the purchase year was 2021. That was the last time we bought monitors.
That's correct.
yep,
And that the replacement cost is estimated at 145, and we have an expected lifespan of 10.
Right.
Which means 2031 is the next time we're thinking about monitors.
Right.
Does that
yep.
meet your expectation, Jordan? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So monitors are good. When you go back to that other sheet, the capital budget, that's what that reflects.
Having said that, if I may, I was looking for the line that I thought you said was in here for the stretchers, and I don't see it.
No, no,
No,
no,
no,
no. I just
It's not
got
in here.
that today.
Ah, okay,
So
that's not on this sheet.
That is not on
Okay,
this sheet yet.
fine,
This
fine.
was an ad that,
Keep going,
there's 3 stretchers for like 27,
Yeah,
27,
okay.
28,000.
When we get to stretchers.
all right,
Let's just.
Yeah,
We only
that's
got
fine.
4 items. Let's
yeah,
get it
next,
done.
yeah,
My question to you, Chet, is at this point in time, you're projecting out in 2031 that the cost would be 140,252. That seems like a very low inflation factor, although you do have a trade-in value of 5,000. So
Yes.
what I assume you're doing is taking the replacement cost, subtracting the 5,000, taking the new number, and then rolling it up. Is that the?
That is
way you're
correct.
doing it?
Yes.
And do you have a specific number that you've used for your go forward inflation rate?
Right now, the inflation rate is 3%.
yeah, I saw that on the very front
By the
sheet,
way, if
yeah.
I had the little password, I would have seen it for you.
Actually, no, if you look if you go to the capital worksheet.
Yeah.
Go to the very top, it says budget year ending 2025. Are we using 24 actuals? No. And inflation rate 103%.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
That's all of those things are there. All of the variables are there. There's no hidden variables.
Yeah.
My bad.
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine. All right, so that's monitors. The next one you have is what, the Ford number
It says
one.
Ford number 1, yeah.
So that's the ambulance that we just replaced, and I have the actual number for that. That again, we actually came underneath that amount, I think
What-
that was.
What
close
amount
to
is that, if I may? I can't find it on the
the
sheet.
contracted amount, so it's listed on his spreadsheet, 234,000.
Mhm.
The
Yep.
contract amount was 229,
Yep,
86 and 51 cents.
Is that all in?
It's all in.
Yeah, it's
Taxes,
built in,
shipping, whatever.
yeah,
so the
Okay, so you got a new
229
number now,
number,
so-
where
Yeah.
would that go?
No,
in
so
here?
that number's there. I'm saying, but we haven't updated the other 2 numbers yet. because
Where
we haven't
will
even
that
looked at
number
it.
go, the 229 number,
That's gonna
That
go
goes
in
where the
taxes.
234 is.
where the 234 is? All right, and it says on that line, if I may, recommended replacement year 2017, am I reading that right?
That's what it was. That's what it was listed before. Now we've replaced it.
Was
replaced
that,
it.
so that ambulance was replaced in 2017, so you're gonna, instead of 2017,
2002.
2002.
oh,
It was supposed to be replaced in 2017 when it was 2002.
but it hasn't been replaced yet.
So the answer is.
Oh,
it
it's
was
being
replaced in
See, but
2024.
see, what happens is when you go to the sheet, it tells you, it starts where it was purchased,
Hmm.
what the replacement was supposed to be. So it's giving you the historical information.
Right,
And then if you look on the capital worksheet, you'll see the 2024, which is when it's actually being purchased.
so I guess my question about that ambulance, it's on order, so we approved it last year,
It was in the article.
it's not in the coming year,
It was in the budget article and it's
for
ordered.
this past year, good,
Yeah.
all
So it's
right,
kind of showing
got
you.
it,
And your useful life on that is expected 15 years?
Yes.
yep.
That's acceptable in your mind?
Yeah,
At this,
We-
today?
yes. today,
But now,
yep.
as far as you know now, yeah, right.
I got a question. I don't have a lot of this information. Why wasn't it? Where I printed it out?
Well, I don't know which sheet you printed
See,
out.
you probably printed out just the front
Might have
sheet,
printed out.
so you
thing
won't
called
have any of the
capital
background
budget.
information.
What else you got there, brother?
We're looking
You
at the
don't have
backup
the,
sheet behind that,
I don't have,
Worksheet.
yeah,
This is when you look at, there's a whole other thing here called equipment worksheet.
yeah,
That's where the detail
The
information. is
detail
that
of
we're
that.
going
And then
over.
and then you get the results of it on that.
so this is like a summary?
Yeah.
yes, that's intended to be a summary sheet.
So the other was hidden.
It's not hidden,
Well, it's
it's
not
one of the
hidden.
tabs at the
It's
bottom.
It's not hidden.
It
It's
was-
hiding
it was
it.
not in front of-
It's not hiding. It's there. It's just.
When you look right there, it says, that little tab right there says equipment
Multiple
worksheet.
pages.
Yeah,
Do you
well,
wanna Send it to me. and I'll-
Multiple pages, that's not hiding it.
okay.
So that's where the
If-
detailed data shows.
Yeah,
All right.
If I may, Tom, we had the same different program, but last year we also had multiple
Yeah,
sheets
Yeah.
and they were pulled together to a summary. Same kind of thing. There's no change in that regard.
All right. Okay.
So, you
He
know,
just
it's gonna
has
be
detail on one sheet and summary on
Way
another.
down the road, okay.
All right.
So
Um,
then the Osage 2, right?
Yes.
And we can look at that offline before the next time.
That's
Some more. I think that'll help you.
Osage 2, that's number 2, our current Osage ambulance that was replaced, we received in 2000, it's a 2017. I wanted to change that to a 15-year, which we already talked about, so in 2032.
Right.
Well, we are counting that as a 15-year in the equipment worksheet, we are
Yep.
Yeah, for the purposes of
That's what
calculation,
it
that's what we
shows, yeah.
have, so.
15 years.
Then we
Yeah.
don't have to change anything. The only thing I am not able to wrap my brain around is the actual price. I do know that the one that we just got for a van style ambulance was the 229,000. We have a bigger style ambulance for 2 and 3. They're box style, which are gonna be way more expensive. I don't have that.
So right now, the number in there is 350,000, correct?
That's what's
is
listed
that-
in there, correct?
All right,
Right.
so
Do you have any
since the next-
expectation of getting a number sometime in the next?
Well, it's,
month?
In 2030.
it's
would
so
be the
far
next-
away, South twenty
No, I
thirty-two,
understand.
that I wouldn't be expecting to get quotes right now.
No, yeah, I
Just their
agree.
best estimate based on what's selling in the industry right now, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
Would say all
and
you-
basically, one of the things that we'll be trying to do as we go through this process is. Because it's hard to give you a hard number. We just gotta call the
Right.
supplier and say, okay, if we
Right.
were to get one of these, what's the ballpark?
Yeah, exactly.
Today's cost.
Yeah.
Right.
You use
So we're
Yeah.
basically, and we will update these numbers as we get them, because that's the one thing, the program has an inflation factor. But every time you buy a new piece of equipment. And you actually see what the actual numbers,
Then it
then we should
resets.
update this and we reset that
Yeah.
one line item for the
Right.
future, so we
I
haven't.
don't know if it's all that hard to get a quote from somebody about what it would cost if we bought it today.
Well, I think that'd be fine for today, but I mean, like, a couple years ago, we got a cost and increase from that point, and that's to get an estimate for sure, but I don't know about.
Well, that's the whole
30.
idea of Chet's whole inflation, and so,
Right.
yeah, and what I'm hearing about this is. It's kind of speculating how you built the formula is, you've got that inflation bar in there, so basically when you plug these numbers in, it's gonna calculate what your estimated price is. How many years out you project that
Yeah.
with that inflation put in. so
Given
you
the cost that
totally
they
get-
gave today.
Yeah, that's why,
That calculates
that
as annual inflation.
Because, yeah.
so simply,
Because
that's
the
why we
purchase-
need the current replacement cost.
Exactly.
Okay,
Because we're projecting out into
That
the
makes sense.
future at some percentage.
Okay.
And that percentage can change every year.
And this committee can say, hey, we've been finding that all equipment is running more at 5% than 3% and make that decision, so.
So that's
So
the
you
other thing.
could,
Expected
Some
life
point
is
in
a
time.
big piece of this and is there any value at the end? Those are the things that play into all of these calculations.
So the other big thing too is if you're buying different pieces of equipment, you can't just flatline and say all 3 ambulances is gonna be 15 years, because if that ambulance that we just bought is primarily gonna be transfers, it is not gonna last 15 years. That thing's out on the road,
Yeah.
higher mileage, running in the salt and the muck and everything else into
Right.
it, so.
yeah, so one of the
That's
things
another
that,
thing we gotta look at.
yeah, one of the things, Hugh, that I had requested, I don't think we got it obviously for today, is the mechanics report that you and Guy worked up last year. So if we could get a mechanics report on this type of equipment as well, that says it's in good shape, it's terrible, it's gonna, whatever your thoughts are, like they were on the other one, that would give us a feel for when, a more realistic replacement might be needed. Right? So I think if we can expand that, because I don't think we got fire equipment.
No, we didn't last year,
Right.
no. We didn't get the mechanics report. It was quite an
Not that we
effort
needed-
for him
we
just to
don't
do all the
necessarily
highway
need it.
equipment.
We don't need it for this year, but
Yeah,
if we
yeah.
could start to think about,
Think about
you
doing
know,
that as we go
you know,
forward.
Well,
Yeah.
one of
basically
the-
evaluating our equipment. Both in terms of its current status, what it is,
Right.
right? And what your experience, Jordan's experience, your experience tells you it's gonna look like, we're gonna need one of these in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. That would be,
Well, that's part of
that would
the,
be an upgrade to the way we look at,
And-
what our financial requirements
Well, it's
are.
like the old theory of, in this town was, a 10 wheel at 20 years and a 6 wheel in Washington.
Okay,
So that would try to be a little more
Try to
realistic.
break that.
we need to keep moving so that we won't run
yeah,
out of
I
time.
mean, basically the goal is to upgrade update this as soon as like we say, okay. And it's really a planning tool. It's not even like, okay, are we gonna replace it?
Right.
That if the transport's gonna be a little more, is heavily used, we could say, well, let's make that a 10-year for planning purposes.
Right.
Exactly.
This is just a planning tool, so that's
Yeah.
the goal.
And if we get the
And you're
mechanics report that
re-looking
says
at
this
the
thing
plan
is
every
actually
year.
gonna last more
Right.
than
So,
10 years.
absolutely.
5
Let's
years
move
down
on to the
road,
next
that
one.
means
Is that
we can
OC?
adjust it, so.
Stage number
but
three
those
is
are
a
two
They're
important
the
tools.
same thing, the two, just 2 different years.
So in
same
any
type of
event,
ambulance, yeah,
Yes.
okay, 2 years apart,
Yeah.
okay. Now, but I have a way more important question
Oh.
that I would like to ask about ambulance. And this is the one that really threw us all way off on ambulance for the last year. And that is, what role does the enterprise fund and the money that is saved there for procuring equipment play in comparison to the Canaan tax-based capital reserves? Last year, we learned we were previously planning all tax-based capital reserves. And last year, we learned there was a very large sum of money, like 280 or 90,000, something in that range, that had been being saved as it was supposed to be in the enterprise fund. And we said, oh, that's the money that should be used to purchase an ambulance. How do those two different funds, in my mind, the enterprise fund should be the primary, and town's taxes for capital reserves would be the supplement needed to procure the equipment. How are those two factored in here?
Right
There
now,
are two different
this,
savings funds.
this particular part of it is strictly the appropriation we need annually for the equipment, okay?
Right,
Then what you're gonna have with the enterprise fund, because the enterprise fund also pays for operations.
right. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
there's various
so
parts of the.
it's
enterprise fund,
basically,
yeah.
and the town, I think we put $180,000 a year into the ambulance at this time. The goal is, on an annual basis, the goal is if the enterprise fund continues to do better because of the transport,
Right,
then we will be able to start reducing that 180.
well, that's what we found. We had been saving 180 and no one was looking at the enterprise fund. Then
Right.
all of a sudden we realized, oh, we don't need to save 180 per year. The enterprise fund could be expected to provide a certain amount each year, and taxes would supplement behind that.
That's correct.
We need to find a way to deal with that.
Well-
Right now, you're gonna, this way this is set up, it appears that we will be planning to use tax-funded money for 100% of ambulance replacement cost
Well, if you,
in this spreadsheet.
and that's a formula we're gonna have to work on the other side on the enterprise fund, because right now, the expected appropriation as this is set up right now today is $111,000. That's equipment alone. Okay, so if we're putting $111,000, we're covering the equipment, and is the enterprise fund paying for itself in every other way? And if that's the case, it may be that we then start just appropriating just the equipment portion. Because we're putting 180 in now, it could technically drop, because I think our fund is doing really well this year.
It was my feeling the enterprise fund had a designated capital accumulation account, separate from the operations account. That was the understanding that we learned last year,
Yeah, last year we
separate
have,
from operations.
yeah, we have the revolving account.
Right.
Set up. And then, when Ned was here, he created the capital reserve.
Okay,
So we have an expenditure line in Fund 12 that we budgeted $50,000 for, and we just cut that check from Fund 12.
Okay.
To put it into the capital reserve fund.
right.
Then the trustees oversee it.
So I think what I'm
So-
hearing is, again, capital reserves based on from taxes can be reduced with the expectation that the enterprise funds revolving account will supplement, will be the difference.
Yeah, and
No?
we've already been looking at the $185,000 that the general fund pays.
Right?
So Canaan pays the ambulance just like the town of Orange and
Yes,
Dorchester.
for the
Yeah.
service. We pay for the service as a town. Yeah, right.
So we've been getting a handle on the revenues over expenditures to see
Right.
like just how well they're performing, so we can figure out a new number that the town of Canaan pays the ambulance.
So for today's meeting, let's leave it at this. I think that you and Carrie Ann can look into that further. There's that kind of an issue does not apply to any other category, police or fire or highway or anybody. But in the area of ambulance, we learned last year for the first time that there was a significant chunk of money in the enterprise fund, and that what we previously thought had to be paid for all out of capital reserves from taxes was not true.
Right.
We learned that last year for the first time. Let's make sure we get that straightened out.
Oh,
going
no,
forward.
the
All right.
issue right now is because there's two separate funds, and it's how are we gonna operate those funds, because
Right.
that was the first time I
So
think we
let's not
used
try to
it.
resolve it now.
Yeah, that was that $50,000. It
I
was
hear you.
another
That
item.
needs attention
My
is my point.
understanding was is after this purchase, the capital reserve was supposed to go away.
Yeah.
because they-
That's what I thought. The tax-based capital reserve was supposed to go away yet.
After
I
it was
agree with
expended
you.
onto this new ambulance.
Right.
That was my understanding as
Because that's
well.
what we were talking about was we were thinking we should be putting on the ballot this year to eliminate that account and we use all the enterprise fund and then we just say, based on the fact that how the fund is doing, we determine what we have to put in for taxes that year.
Again, I want to put it on the table and leave it for today, but
Right.
right now, this spreadsheet will include the total cost of replacing ambulances in the summary sheet. The way it's set up right now. You perhaps will need to look at that. That's all I'm
Well,
saying.
no, yeah,
today.
because basically this is gonna tell you what the appropriation is for the equipment. But because the equipment and the operations are mixed in the enterprise fund, we gotta see how we're gonna work
All
that
right.
formula.
I simply ask you to work on that and clarify it later. Let's leave it for today.
We talk about
All
stretches
right.
now, because
Yep, yep.
we've got the 4 items that are here and
Go ahead,
everybody's
Sal.
in agreement that we're okay there.
Yeah.
So now we want to talk about adding an additional item in here called stretchers. Is
Yes.
that- Okay, good.
Yep.
Let's discuss that.
Yep.
So, yeah, the ambulance that we just replaced that's on order comes with a new stretcher, so we don't have to worry about that one.
Okay, good.
Initially, so this is a quote for the 2 of them. And just a little background, the one that's an ambulance one that is being built at this time, it's called a power load stretcher. So simply you just walk the patient up. Hugh and I could load the patient, touch a button and it lifts automatically, so it's gonna save on backs, all of that. Majority of the ambulances around town have them. So I'd got 2 quotes, for 2 stretchers, to make up for all 3. And the grand total was $111,801.10.
Are you proposing to purchase those 2 in this coming tax year?
Yeah, and then it would be, when the other ambulances get swapped out and exchanged in 2030, 2032, then the stretchers would also be replaced at that time.
They would only be 6 or 7 years old by that time then. Right?
Let me just ask a question here, because
Sure.
when you bought the new ambulance, was the stretcher part of the 200
She just said it was.
Ambulance ones was, yes, the last 2 ambulances in two thousand
Before that.
fifteen and 17, they did not get.
No, I understand, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, when you buy an ambulance today, what you're getting is you're getting the stretcher as well.
Correct.
And that's in that 200, the new number you just gave us,
Yeah.
200 some odd thousand, right?
So
Okay.
my only
So
concern,
going forward, when we replace an ambulance, it's replacing the stretchers as well.
But that would be my goal. We have to start somewhere to get there, yeah.
Right, but so then my question would be, do the stretchers last as long as the ambulance?
Our stretchers that we have now are like 2007s. They're in decent condition. They're actually very surprised every time we come. We have an annual contract for them to come out and service them,
Okay.
so that's kept up with. I just think at some point, they always tell us we should look into swapping them out.
so we have not got, so if we buy 2 new ones this year, they're usually good for at least 15 years, it sounds like.
They should be
However-
replaced before then, but yeah.
Oh, however, when we buy new ambulances in 2030 and 2032, you would replace, you'd get ambulances with new stretchers. That would mean these would only be used for about half their life.
And I apologize,
What do you
I
think
think the
about that?
15 years with the ambulance rotation, the proper one is adequate. I
Right?
think, when we replace this and then when we go to replace it in 2030, we're gonna be like, do they really need to be replaced? But I think that's part of trying to get the adequate equipment and getting us on a.
So at this point in time, you clearly need 2 new stretchers, right? And they're gonna basically, be put in Osage 2 and 3, right? And you suspect that that the useful life of those is roughly the same as the 15 years that we're anticipating?
Yeah, it's for the same, it's done us that, yeah.
Right, so we just have to, and the number to buy 2 stretchers is once again,
$111,801.10.
okay, so we're gonna have to add a new item in there.
This
Well,
also
usually
includes the
trade-
service contract and the trade-ins and all that.
It's usually traded on.
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
The
So-
trade-ins on there for
So the other
2,500.
thing that you run into over there right now is when we do this, we have 3 different style pots. In the place.
3 different what? Excuse me?
Style stretchers.
Okay,
So if you have a mechanical breakdown, and call another ambulance, then you actually gotta transfer a patient off a cot rather than just transfer a whole cot and everything ambulance. needs.
yeah.
And we've had that happen a couple of times.
So I
And what are
assume
you
the ones that
proposing
you're
here, to
buying are
make
the
them
ones that you
common?
got in the new truck.
Yeah, like one truck has another, yeah.
Yeah, this would standardize.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Standardized, good,
I
good.
get it. I just
That's
wanted to
good.
make sure that we're all on the same page there.
Yeah, no, thank
Okay.
you.
So I think Hugh might have just answered my question, which nobody was answering. If we buy these two new stretchers now, what happens in 2030 and 2032? Have we only used them half their life? I think you just described that come that time, if we want to, there would be a trade-in value at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan, you looked up.
If we
some-
decided to
come
turn
up
them
with-
over again.
There's a market for that stuff.
So each stretcher for a trade-in, they've accounted for $2,500 each for a total of $5,000 off.
For the two we had, so it's not a lot.
Well,
But the
big-
trade-in value for something newer, only 6 years old or whatever, may be a lot more than.
It would
the-
be more,
the-
right.
Yeah.
Well,
It should
the
be
big
more with
money-
age and it should be more because
Right.
it'd be the power.
The big money is.
Oh, yeah, right.
Big money is the power lift system.
Yeah, good point. Not only age, but also the fact that it's a power.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay,
big cost.
all right. So you're gonna add the line item.
Yeah.
I think we need to move on or we'll never,
Great.
gonna get to the other equipment today. I think that's good. Again, the biggest open issue, I think, will be to resolve the interaction of the enterprise fund savings with capital reserves.
Alright, so now before
For
we, so that's
ambulance.
good, so we got stretchers in there, now, I just wanna take a look at the items that we have here, so I understand the lines, right? The first line says, emergency medical services equipment. I don't know, I guess it's appropriation, and it has $75,000, $80,000.
What sheet are you on, Sal?
I'm on the, capital budget.
Ah, you changed sheets. You went from the detail to the, okay, got it.
Right.
Go ahead.
So is that?
Where are you?
He
I'm on
switched to
the
the capital budget sheet.
And I'm looking at emergency medical services equipment line number 41.
Right, line number
Right.
41, yeah.
And in fiscal year 2025, you're looking for an appropriation of $75,000, right? 75,433. Is that
Well,
correct?
it's funny, I don't, because I'm on an Apple, I get an error there. I don't
That's,
see that.
yes, that's the appropriation at this time.
Right.
That's what base the calculation does.
Yep.
But the recommended, when you go to the capital worksheet, the recommended actual appropriation actually it does read 75,433. But that's without the stretchers
Understood,
and without the updated prices.
understood.
Right.
Yeah, no, I got that.
But
I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
But I assume I'm assuming it at the moment would show paying for 100% of the equipment from tax-based capital reserves,
Not,
no?
not necessarily,
Oh.
and that's what we have to do, because
All right.
basically what
Okay.
we have to do for the enterprise fund. Is look at its annual cash flow, we gotta say, what should their base amount of be, do they
Right.
need $300,000, do they need $400,000? So when that fund gets above it, there would be a calculation that we would say, okay, well, then this much can be put into the capital.
Right. And that would,
Purchases.
that would.
And
that
then
would
when you
change that
subtract, and then when you
75,000.
subtract it, then you go, okay, well. What the town is also funding, the 180,000 includes some of the operations. This is the thing, it's like everything's kind of mixed. You got operations, you got capital on both sides of
Yeah.
the issue. So we have to show some sort of explanation that the town is, if you say the $80,000 is the proper appropriation, you go. Well, $100,000 is going to operations and 80,000 is going to capital from the town. We have to identify those
We
things.
covered all that before. The point I'm trying to make is that $75,000 number you're looking at right there.
Yep.
At the moment,
Right.
that number would assume all of the equipment is being bought by tax-based capital.
This just says you have to put that much money in. It doesn't
Oh,
care where it
doesn't-
comes from.
All right, gotcha.
It does not
But
care where it
piece,
comes from.
all right, we'll have to define where it comes from. I got you.
That's the
Let's-
separate
let's-
discussion.
let's see the line that says emergency medical services equipment, that an appropriation is kind of in the wrong spot, but.
Yeah.
So that you're 75 this year, 80,000 next year, that's what your formula is saying we need to do to fund.
Right.
And then the next line is, the
And
warrant.
keep in mind, that's the cost over life annual expense.
Yeah.
And when you're behind, like if there's one of these functions that we're behind on.
Yeah.
Then we'd have to boost it
Well,
accordingly.
we'll take a look at, when we get there, we get there. So then the next line would be the balance forward, right? So if we've got $75,000 appropriation and we have a $9,000 balance forward, that's fine. We're not buying anything theoretically. Well, now we're gonna buy 111, but forget that for a moment. And you get to the bottom line there and you say emergency medical services equipment, guess I can't.
Yeah, the bounce forward number is not working
It's
correctly.
not
right now.
working correctly. I can see that.
Thank you, okay.
So you gotta fix it. You'll fix that. All right,
Yep.
fine.
That's an adjust. Like I said, this came
Got
at
it.
10 minutes before you got it.
I just wanna make sure that my mind is not screwy. you know?
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's not working right.
No,
Okay,
all
good.
of these things we'll be addressing. It's just,
Alright.
we're doing it on the fly.
I
Okay.
think we're good with the ambulance.
No, I just want to
Department?
understand, I'm trying to understand the flow of
Yep.
his stuff, and if that's what he's saying is he hasn't had a chance to get this straightened out, that's fine. I just-
Yep. No, it will give you because the one thing that this program does help you with is if you underfund, it'll show you what year you're going negative.
yeah,
Right, of course. Yeah,
So
we had that
that's
last year,
the
too.
helpful
We had
item.
that before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Kinda like the
I think we
fire
should move on
department,
to another category. Would it be?
I would go
Alright, so
fire because
police
we got you
or-
on here.
Got you, let's do fire.
Is the
All right.
111, does that include the $5,000 off, or?
It does.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah, she said it did. Yep, yeah.
thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Jordan.
Next.
So let's do
Does
fire
anyone have
next.
police here?
That's right, because Hugh was here. Hugh was here for, so we'll do fire. I'm trying to find.
I got a good idea.
Alright, I got an idea. Ideas are good, but facts are
So
better.
just, and this was the purchase we just made, so it's basically the equipment, and then if there's any additions you need to make, or if any of the numbers are way off. So,
Wake up.
That's about 40,000 short.
Alright.
yeah, these were all last
I
year.
don't know what to put there.
Uh,
So let's just, why don't we do what we did,
That's
just,
about
let's just go through
Okay.
each one and talk about it.
Last
Do
year,
that?
they're replacing that.
Yeah, we will give them a second to get their act together, I guess.
Now, so that's why they have that.
And then we'll do that.
They should have done this.
And I probably.
You can pull it for you.
We got a great chance. I like this is on fun.
Yes. Yes.
No, I agree.
Same thing with that one,
We-
so that's actually if we did not home build that, that's 4 to 5 times more than that.
Okay. So basically,
So-
because right now we show an appropriation of 111 with those calculations, so
Yeah.
it'll probably be closer to 150
Oh, yeah.
over cost overlay.
Yep.
At least.
So are we ready to proceed and talk about the equipment?
Conversation? Good.
So basically, it's like, is there anything that's moved up the list?
So and that's just trucks, so.
Well, let's
then
find out
we
a
also
bit.
have stuff, gear and all that stuff built in these usually too.
Let's just
Well,
go
the thing
through one at a time.
that we have that's separated, because the gear would normally be in here, that meets the capital requirements. Because there was a separate spreadsheet done for small capital equipment, like. And because the capital budget committee has set, I think it's 10, was it 10,000 or
So we decided this, $10,000 as the.
As the minimum.
The minimum for
Anything
capital
else?
equipment, yeah.
Right,
So on that point, if I may.
2.5 cents would hit you $10,000.
okay,
that?
so we gotta put some of the gear in, because he just got prices and now it's $10,000 a set.
Like turnout gear.
Yeah.
Ah.
So why don't we
So-
just, go- let's
okay.
do the same thing we
Let's
did.
do the trucks and stuff, and then what I can do is knowing that now, I can send you guys a recommendation on what we're gonna look.
If I may,
at.
1 second.
And you can, and we can, and whenever you have time, we'll sit down and we'll just go through this and do it.
So one comment, just to caution, partly because you're new in the role here right now and so on, is that up until last year, there was a spreadsheet with a list of all kinds of additional equipment like pumps and chainsaws and ladders and
Yeah, I'm not.
turnout.
looking at that stuff, but-
Let me finish. Up until last year, that spreadsheet was brought to the table here. We kind of all looked at it and talked about it. This year, on Chet's recommendation, this committee is not gonna be looking at that list. My only comment to you is be careful. Don't let yourself get caught short that equipment doesn't get fed into carry in for the general budget, okay? Just-
Yeah, all the
just-
smaller stuff will be fed into the operations portion.
Okay,
Yeah,
you won't,
see,
we
I
won't be
see-
talking about
I
any of
see
that stuff
one
here.
of the CIP meetings, but actually before Chet even started, that was a huge discussion because we're
Right.
wasting time.
We were,
Saying
so we're not doing that anymore, but I just didn't want you to get caught short by not feeding it into your
And the other-
general budget request.
And the other part of
Okay.
that issue was the fact that our auditor was the auditor and what the town was doing and what it was, all the calculations were different, like what's capital.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
auditor was
right.
using 20
Got it,
years.
got it.
You know, there was a whole bunch of different things. We just want to get it to be one.
All right, so just a caution, so you know that changed. All right, good. So let's go ahead, Sal. You
All
want?
right, so let's just go through them then. The Chevy 1-ton, that's gonna be replaced in 2031. According to the capital budget.
I see 2029. Why,
Yeah,
I'm seeing something
well,
different.
that's-
Okay.
See, this is my problem, is that every one of the ones
Okay,
Yeah.
remember,
has been jumped up 2 years.
what you're looking at is the number that's in the recommended year. The
Yeah.
one that's not yellow is the calculated number.
Oh,
The other one is, this is what I think the plan was from
Which
last
sheet are we on
year.
now? Which sheet are we on?
I'm
So
on
if I'm-
capital worksheet.
Capital
oh,
worksheet,
capital
right.
worksheet.
Okay.
I went to the detail sheet like you had done
No,
before.
that's okay. Yeah,
So recommended year
Right,
says 2029 for this piece of equipment,
right.
okay? 2031 is a number that this committee enters in. Okay, whatever you think it should be.
I see.
I think the 2031, the way it's set up right now, was the one that was in last year's budget
Okay.
recommendation. One is calculated based on, this is when it was bought, this is its life, puts in the number.
So the real question is when do you think that will need to be replaced? Your best guess right now, it's a ways off.
And would you put 200,000 in for that? Is that what you were saying?
I put 200 plus in it, so. In a couple reasons
That's not
behind
gonna
that real quick is that truck is actually under the size for. What it is, as far as a 1-ton, it really should be on a 550 or 500 type chassis.
Okay,
That totally changes what your price market is to.
yeah,
The other
'cause-
thing, basically, that was a home built unit. So the 40 grand, plus a lot of that was bought with grants. So you're looking at two and a quarter, probably roughly to replace that.
it's 100 grand for the bare truck.
So is that still gonna be a 1-ton utility truck?
It's gonna be a little above
If I had
a 1
anything
ton.
to do with it, I'd bump it up to a ton and a half.
And what would the cost of that be?
He just said around 200 to
100
225.
grand just for the truck, so yeah, two and a quarter anyway.
That's what he said.
Right, so what you're saying is you wanna change the Chevy 1-ton utility to a Chevy 1.5-ton? And you wanna estimate the.
Well, it'll
current-
be the 550 equivalent.
Yeah,
Right, whatever that is, and the
Either F-550 or F-600.
Yeah.
the 550, that's the, one of the highway trucks or something? I don't
Well,
know,
it's-
yeah,
550
Rams,
is-
yeah.
I don't know, but, so what I'm asking you is like, your recommendation at this moment is. You wanna change from a Chevy 1-ton utility to a. I don't care, brand to be determined.
Let's upgrade it to a more
One-ton
heavy duty truck.
You're going from a 12,000 GVW truck to a 20,000 GVW. truck.
Got it. That's
So
what.
however you guys wanna describe it, I don't
Yes.
care. It doesn't matter to me. You know, the gear, you guys are the gear guys. I don't care about that. What I care about is an accurate description of what it is you think you wanna buy. And a rough estimate of what the replacement cost would be. And that's all we need to know.
Right.
Plus
And what
you
year,
expect
and what
it-
year?
And when we need it, and
So,
obviously.
I didn't
what-
get it. When do you think
So I don't,
you
we
will
don't,
need
I
to
don't
replace
care,
this?
just tell us what you think you need. We'll put it
Let
in
him
here
answer,
for now.
let him answer.
Yeah.
We'll
When
put
do
it
you
in here
think,
for now, and then we'll make a decision about whether we wanna recommend or not recommend.
what's
So
your,
that truck there is at least, right now, way it's going is a 15, minimum 15 mil lifespan.
when do you think we
So
will need to
that would
replace
put
it?
At 34.
So 2034, you think we'll need to replace it? Okay, can you,
So that's a substantial
And
difference.
I think that was a 20,
Yeah.
like 2018, 2019, when we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 2019 purchase.
That's so 15 years would be 34.
Yeah, okay.
so, all right,
10
so you're gonna
useful
make that a
life.
2034.
And then the new truck you want, that would be the same roughly 15-year replacement, or would it be, yeah?
Yeah.
The usage that I'm seeing that we're getting out of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
the-
Well,
Okay,
that's what's important, right? I mean,
Yeah.
your experience is really important.
So-
That's the.
So I just
that's why
changed,
we have you here,
I just
'cause we
changed,
don't know.
I just changed that to
Yeah.
2034 and it
Yeah.
recalculates.
and 200,000,
I didn't put the
Estimate.
200,000 in yet.
he
I'll do
said
that.
he's
Two
estimating.
and a quarter.
I'm gonna put 2.25 in.
2.25.
And about 250. do I-
I'm just looking at it as not getting the grant money.
It's far enough down the road that at
Okay,
least we're getting the
next.
right.
So that's in there and it changed the annual, making it 15-year instead of 10.
Yeah.
And going to the 225 changed it by about $10,000.
Yeah, right.
A year.
All right, engine one, it's the
Engine
next
one.
line, right? It says 2036 replacement, is that about right?
That says a 25-year, I guess it was,
25 year, that's pushing. So-
that's what I would, isn't 20-year the normal
20 is
rotation?
the normal rotation.
Okay, so we want to change that to a 20-year expected lifespan, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
Right?
and the 485,000 you said was way low for, even if we were gonna replace it today,
Oh, yeah,
when you are
You're
looking like
looking at-
800?
you're looking between 650, 700 compared with that truck that then rolling out of here.
20 years, so that's what's it.
Okay, so that's that,
That'd be in 31, you would want to replace that. That's
Yes,
20 years.
2031.
correct? So it's something that's in our window, so we're gonna need a, a quote on that. Current replacement cost. Not a guess at 485, would be helpful to get an.
Well, I just put 675 in at his recommend, or 700.
Yeah, I know, but he's grabbing that number out of air.
Yes and no,
I'm
they're
rather
in,
than
he's in the
have
right
historical
ballpark.
Deliveries in the area last year.
Okay, that's helpful.
But we
Yeah.
can see if we
That's
can,
about all you can do for something that's that far away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so right
Well, it's
now,
not that
yeah.
far, it's only 5 years down the road now.
Well, you got one
No.
coming out before that.
Yep.
Engine 2 should have been pushed back to 29, I believe.
That's what it's showing, yeah.
That thing was actually supposed to be replaced
In 2023.
according to this 23, yeah.
2021 before it got pushed to 23.
Oh,
I
okay,
mean, right now it's listed at 98 purchase and a 25-year, and if you put, yeah, and it's right now showing 23.
right.
It was the should have, what it should have been, but if
So
you
the
go back to a
question is-
20, and that's a 20-year cycle typically anyway, right?
That's 99.
Yeah, it says 98 on here.
So the point is that in this first year's budget, is that where that replacement needs to be? At $900,000, am I reading that right?
That'd be comparable to what engine 1 is.
Right,
So it's not the same piece of
but
gear, right?
what's, I'm reading from the sheet and it says at the moment, 900,000, I'm asking.
Yeah, that was what the number was. If I put the same,
That's the raw end without the inflation pieces built into it.
so I put it back to 700 as a current replacement number.
All right. And
So we got one,
And again, are we saying that engine needs to be in the coming tax year? In FY 25?
Well, this becomes a question because
Is that
we're at the
what you
place right
need?
now with this particular fund. If we're going to make a purchase like that because we've let it go way too far, is that the one you have the dash goes out and stuff like that?
That's the rescue.
That's the rescue.
That's different.
Me, I put that truck up against any piece of equipment out, no problem.
Okay.
The problem is, we're so far out and it's kept getting pushed out.
Right,
Yeah,
What it's done, it's shrunk the window between both of them, which is not a good deal.
that's not good, yeah.
so,
yeah,
so
yeah.
the thing I was gonna mention was, this would be an issue that if we're gonna do this, we're probably gonna have to do, that would be a lease item.
You might
because
lease
there's-
it, but
that
again,
would
my
be-
question, are we talking this year? Do we
And
need
that's
to
the
replace
question
that
is-
piece of
is-
equipment within the next year?
I mean,
Is
I
that
would
what we're
argue,
at?
I would argue, yes, we should be trying to
I'm
do that.
asking you what he
Because even,
needs.
I would argue that if we,
25-year-old piece of equipment.
right, I would argue that if you don't replace it this year, if it's the following year, it's the same situation, you're still gonna have to lease.
Right, right.
yeah. So
My
I
only
think the-
question-
The point is,
Excuse
the
me,
lease thing.
the reason.
Yeah,
Okay, is, that can run across departments. So the fact that we're talking about one piece
Right.
of gear that we want to replace here in a lease mode, buying it through the lease, buys us time and,
Right.
buys us
Right.
time. So there may be others in some of the other departments that we want to add to that thought process.
correct.
To help us, through the cycle, right?
That's
Get that,
Last
so-
year, we started having conversations about it.
Yeah.
Look into reality. Basically, I'm gonna say basically, we spent our reserve fund down to little or nothing
Sure,
on that rescue.
Right,
Looking if we need even 29, there's really very limited possible way that we can come up with the money to replace that in 29 without doing it.
yeah, I'm totally in favor of, certain items,
So,
buying the leases to help us offset the problem that we've been screwing up for the last 15, 20 years.
so,
I
excuse
get
me,
it. It buys us time, it gets us the equipment we need,
Mhm.
it makes us more efficient in everything that we do.
Oh, that's
So, it preaches to the choir. I'm
Well,
kidding, but
and that's,
just trying to understand what we need to do.
yeah,
So,
because
excuse
the
me,
reality is,
so-
if the committee wants to look at, okay, we know this is, that fund's not gonna pay for it.
Right.
There's a part of this that I can put the lease in,
right,
and it'll
correct.
start to
That's
show
the
us
difference,
the whole thing, so therefore we have all that information and then we can
So-
calculate it that
The
way.
one that wants to be replaced first, engine one, right?
engine 2.
Engine two,
And that's the one we're
That
talking
wasn't
about,
just
right?
one.
Engine
Yes.
two, right?
Engine's 26 years old.
yeah, and that one wants to be
So I'm sorry, excuse me, I've asked this question 3 times and I didn't get an answer yet. I'm asking Hugh. Not you.
Not me.
I'm asking you, does that engine need to be replaced in the coming year?
Yes.
It does, based on its condition, its operation, et cetera.
Here's the thing you come into, right? Is we've had problems with engine one, and especially some long-term pieces that puts that thing out of service for a week.
Wow.
plus.
Yeah.
Okay, turbo issues, and it's had some electrical issues and stuff to it.
Mm-hmm.
So when that's down, that engine becomes your frontline piece, because that isn't running.
Uh-huh.
Thankfully, we have a very reliable spare.
Okay,
Problem is, when your insurance starts looking at these things, even though we get them pump tested every year.
right.
It puts you in a situation, how much are you willing to take that risk?
Right.
Because of age.
So your answer to the question is yes, it doesn't, that
Yeah.
one does,
Because if we would have replaced. it
engine
in
two
20
needs to be replaced.
And I believe
Alright.
it was 21 before it got pushed back to 23.
I hear you all
We
that,
would- So that right there would have put you on the cycle. Whatever the reasons, but that would have put you on the cycle, because engine one is an 11. You would have got a new engine, so you would have had 10-year.
I hear you, I understand, but yeah.
Obviously, funds weren't there, but
But if I'm not so
Yeah.
worried about the separation between the two for a minute, basically, sometimes when we push a piece of equipment back, it's because it's in good condition and it's operating well. You just said it needs replacement, I believe you, so that's what I wanted to hear.
All right, so
All right.
we're gonna put that into the lease category.
Yes.
Question?
Well, that may come at least, that'll come later, that decision.
Right, but that'll be part of the financial
That'll be-
calculation
yeah,
that we
correct.
do.
Later.
So,
First question is, does that need to be replaced?
right.
Now, and the answer is finally, I got yes.
And then engine number one.
Took a long time to get that answer.
Sometimes.
engine one was a demo.
Yeah. When is engine one gonna be replaced?
Well, that's a 2031.
2031.
Okay.
So that one, yeah, because that
That's
one
the
was a
current one.
2011, and we've changed these cycles from 25 to 20.
Engine
at
one
Hughes
was, I
Okay.
thought, 2000, we thought 36, but.
Well, that's what it said, but he's changing it.
Well, remember, the
No, I
yellow
understand,
is,
I get you, we're
Yeah.
gonna change, I get it.
remember that when you look at the column in
We're
yellow,
going to
that
31.
was what was in our plan.
That's fine.
So the other column, now it says 2031 in the other column,
Fine.
and that's the recommended replacement.
So that's gonna be.
All right. Next one is the rescue.
Come on board, go ahead.
The
next
rescue
one
is
the
what's
rescue.
purchased.
Purchased now.
That's, we're waiting for it to come in a year and a half.
Okay, it's on order, it's, yeah. I know lead
We-
times are terrible,
We
yeah.
paid half of it, and I think we just have to pay the other half when
Okay.
it comes in.
The next one is the
The top
command
of the
vehicle.
command.
Yeah.
Is that right? When's that gonna need replacement? 29, according to this? 2029,
Yeah, I see that. 34 also.
So that can go out to 15 year?
15-year life, maybe.
Okay.
That was 19, and what's the useful life you were saying is?
It was 10 originally,
It was
now it's
10, it's gonna
15. I
change it
just
to
switched it to
15.
15.
Okay,
Okay.
I mean, right now, I'll tell
Good.
you guys, it's got 28,000 miles on it, planes a whistle, and the
Good.
price on that is, you got 40 on the replacement price.
Yeah.
I'd bump that up to 60, 65, and I'll tell you why is because your base price of that vehicle, even though we'll buy that under the state bid, but to do that are complete and appropriately,
Oops.
it should be sent somewhere like OSP, which is included in, not like when we look at the cruiser price on, we're buying the base cruiser.
yeah, then they buy the.
They outfitted through the
Yeah.
operational budget.
Right, right.
This thing, it got piecemealed together, it's a great car, or whatever, but I got 3 different switches to try to turn on the lights that are. You know,
So
the radios are mismatched,
it's a
so
different kind of,
look forward.
Yeah.
The professional to have this stuff done the way it should be.
Buy it.
We need to put the. actual
Complete,
prices
all right.
in there,
Okay,
have it
Okay.
professionally.
but 15-year life and would you say a 60,000 estimate for current replacement?
no,
Yeah,
65.
65.
65, okay.
Now,
Anybody 70?
And then the next one is the tanker.
The tanker, a 2003 tanker.
Black Rod one, because the state, through state bid police package already has a lot of that wiring and stuff, you just have to have
Yeah.
it.
This is all police package, all wired to the rear, it's all console, it doesn't even come with a center console in the things, you know how they are with
Yeah.
the center stuff.
All right, well, now we're up to the tanker.
Okay, the tanker. When will that need to
2003.
be replaced?
This is, well, first of all, let's start with this, it had 650,000, and is that correct? Ish?
Current replacement value.
You know what, everybody just paid for that one bigger stuff. Cause that's basically our tanker.
It was close, I'm
replacement.
pretty sure it was close to that.
I know
Cause they
their
did have
engine,
grant money and stuff, but I'm pretty sure that was over 6.
I know their engine was over 6,
Yeah.
that, but so.
And is
yeah,
that
just
a,
600.
right now it sits as a 25-year cycle?
25-year life.
Yeah,
About-
so that doesn't usually follow the same requirements of your frontline engines.
Right.
So,
But that's gonna be pumper tanker, right?
well, so that's just a straight tanker, which we'd probably kind of replace on the same lines of it.
So we got a number in there, 643, we wanna leave 643, we wanna change it to.
And leave the 643 in
Thank
there,
you.
I can get you a closer number to update.
All right, we're gonna leave it at 25 years.
Right. And basically the next piece of this, because that's all of the big equipment, and then we just got to look at the other things that meet the capital requirements that we can add to this,
Right. and
which
one
will
of
be the
those-
turnout gear,
Right.
replacement things.
So on this equipment, I
Yeah.
will tell you that there is still talk about not wanting to straight replace one of these engines in a lease a ladder. And a lot of the reasons behind that is we've been using Lebanon's quite often, and it's not always available. There was a study done by, and I can get you guys copies of it, by the fire marshals and standards training back in the 80s, and that was one of their recommendations to the town of Canaan with the downtown structures we have and Cardigan roads.
And I would probably agree with that.
I'm
confused. The town of Killington, we just went through this whole process where, sorry,
So he said it quickly and it was easy to miss. What he's talking about is upgrading one of the major fire engines to a ladder truck,
Oh.
which is a
okay.
lot more expensive.
Right.
Well-
And he slipped that in, but you didn't hear it, so.
yeah, we actually just went through that in Killington where, when they built the Grand Hotel right up at the resort, they were required to buy a tower or participate in a purchase for a tower.
Yeah.
The tower replacement was outrageous, and actually, I think it's Pierce that's making it on a standard pumper frame where you can actually get a normal sized truck with a 100-foot ladder on it.
Uh-huh.
And it's about $1 million, $1,019,000. But it's been the best truck ever. And,
So are we
and
saying
they
that
have the
the-
same situation, especially when you look at Cardigan Mountains buildings. That would be
So
really
what
a big
you're
help.
suggesting is that the vehicle that we want to buy through the legal program, engine number
Too.
2, wants to be a ladder one, and it wants to be roughly $1 million instead of 900.
And
Correct.
he's looking at like 1.2.
Yeah, because that
1.2 million.
that's about 3 years ago, the 1,019,000. So it's about 1.2.
Now it would be about one.
Right, and right
It's a
now,
big decision.
the reason for that is, again.
So
you mentioned Cardigan Mountain.
Cardigan Mountain School downtown, they did a study way back in the 80s, and that was one of the recommendations along with that and the 5-inch hose that we run to.
Yeah.
Can you
Try
need
it,
a
so-
ladder for the lightning strike as well? Like any
Yeah.
building in the downtown, like the apartment complexes, the laundromat, that building, none of that, what they have for apparatus, why
Yeah.
not reach that?
Yeah, one of the things, just so you guys know, is the Economic Development Committee is looking at trying to bring in more businesses and stuff, both in the industrial park and more downtown stuff. So I think that, we certainly want to be prepared for that. And since this vehicle has such a long life, I'm behind the 1.2. Let's put it in at 1.2 as a lease. That is going to be an upgrade.
Yeah,
to
because
the ladder truck.
basically $300,000 over 5 years is $60,000 a year
I get it.
to get the right vehicle.
the
It's not a
numbers.
huge number. But, again, it's one of those things that, and this is part of what we're gonna be doing planning wise, and this is a really good example. Where that lease will be about 240,000 a year, for 5 years, and then working the cycle, so.
Why would it
do
be
we-
only 5 years? Last year's highway leases were 7 year
Well, we
leases.
went
What
out,
they
I'm
got?
just saying, typically, the last one we did was 5 year. We can go out 7. I mean, we can hire, 'cause
Okay, we
we can
could,
go,
whatever. All right.
Republic First, the same company, or a lot of the leasing is done through the companies.
The
with
details,
these.
see, we'll work through the details, but I
Right.
think that right now, let's get the number, let's get the equipment that these guys want,
Right,
right? And what we think they're gonna be, and let's get the numbers in there, and then we can take a look at the whole picture when we get the whole picture.
Well, of course, yeah.
and
Right.
what company are you
so
using for
Hugh-
that typically?
Ladder.
Yeah,
We usually do a lot of dealings with E1. Pierce has been very competitive on pricing now. They've
Yeah.
been really aggressive. We've looked around at some Smeel stuff too, and I've got specs on Bristol's and it's.
Okay.
It's a decent truck. It's-
So Q, will a ladder truck fit in our garage?
If we were to get rid of one of the engines, yes, it would fit.
If what?
If we replace one of the engines with that.
Oh, I meant
Yes, it will
lengthwise.
fit.
Is a
Yes.
ladder truck too long to fit in the garage?
No, the towers are long. The
No.
ladder, the whole point of this is these ladder trucks they're making right now actually fit in just a large engine
It
frame.
will fit, it'll fit in the garage if we replace the
Yeah,
engine.
sure,
All right,
that's
fine.
yeah, no.
All right.
You'd
We
be
were-
surprised where
we were
that
gonna
fit
be-
at full throttle.
We were gonna be tight if we tried to do an additional. but we're
Oh, no,
doing
no.
this one. And
As a
the other
replacement,
thing is
yeah.
too, when we spec that out, if we go with the 500 gallon tank and the larger pump that's come on them, that will classify as your class A pumper also, so it'll cover you for that.
And that's, you will find like in our town, because I live in Killington, but the ladder truck goes out on probably 60% of the calls because it's got so much versatility because of the
So-
pumps and everything else.
Your ISO rating, which they ask,
Yeah.
if you have a ladder, yeah, we
So-
got ground ladder.
So I'm sorry, I need to go back a minute. You just said something that might be very important to you about, you said if you get it with the proper tank storage and pump capacity, that it would serve as your pumper. Are you saying that one ladder truck with larger pumping capability would replace two trucks?
No.
No, all right, all right.
What I'm saying is-
All right, got it.
That'll meet the price.
Nice thought, good
Got
dream, but no.
it, got it. Okay,
You can use it as a pumper.
you can use it.
for a ladder.
That's fine. I
It's a good
accept.
selling point.
I just
Yeah, well-
had to ask.
No, I mean, it's a good selling point for the town, it's by.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
for
that's true.
example,
Of course.
Lebanon just spent 1.2 on a 100-foot stick that has no pump, no waterway.
Really?
And you really need it in a lot of your new wooden construction, the amount of glue in these, new trusses and everything.
Yeah, I know.
50% glue.
Yeah.
Your catastrophic failure on a roof now. You can't just put people up there because if
Yeah.
you've got fire underneath and that, once
Yeah.
they catch.
Yeah.
Your catastrophic failure is not 1 hour away.
No,
It
it's
might be
2 minutes.
5 minutes away.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's
Um,
move on to that.
Houses burn 7 times faster.
There is one more. You just said Lebanon bought 100-foot ladder. What length ladder are you guys looking at, thinking about?
Actually, it's correct me, there's actually 110.
Yeah, what are you looking at?
We're looking at anywhere between 75 and 100.
Yeah.
All right. All right. And theirs was 110, and the price you mentioned that they paid without pumping capability, even with that in mind, you still think that you could buy this for about 1.2 today? Roughly.
I don't know which one we went to, we actually may be able to get a demo, a stock demo. something
All right.
that's a lot cheaper.
But I would suggest that we get a quote right away on this.
Well, I was about, that's where I was gonna
Yeah.
go next. This is the engine we're talking about.
Right, I put the
Next,
1.2 in there for discussion and then
So-
we'll try to refine that.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
that's what I'm getting at.
So that's right. We need a quote. We need a firm quote
Well,
because of the
Yeah.
dollar amount involved in the near term.
Right.
We need to get a firm quote for the engine that you're talking about, for the ladder truck you're talking about, all spec'd out the way you need it. That's got to be quoted. All right?
and I will talk to the
right.
financing group.
Thank you. All right, and now, and there are other things that you wanted to add to the list?
Yeah, so there's things, we back the things off, so the things that we need here, I believe, is turnout gear, because that is a high cost, you're looking at. Going through 18, it was just, so for 4 sets, I got a quote of just over $15,000. Last week, and that has a 10-year shelf life, no questions asked on.
And how many turnout gears do we have? In total right now?
So you're looking at about 20, but what we try to do is stagger those in. The other piece that is, it's getting so. Your people are coming around all the time. Are gonna need, get that rotation of a backup set.
All right, so I think this is a little trickier, right?
Mhm.
Because you're gonna have, if you get 4 now and 15, then they replace in 10 years or whatever. And there are others, there's another 16 of them laying around.
Then the
that
biggest,
You gotta kind of
So we kind
categorize.
of manage that, people who are, right now, we manage the people who are interior get all certified interior gear.
Uh-huh.
And people who are not may get the older gear.
Well, what I'm saying is you're gonna wanna be replacing, if you got 20 pieces of gear. And you're replacing 4 now, and then 10 years from now, you're gonna replace 4. If you're putting it into the capital budget, there's another category of X wants to be replaced in another 2 or 3 years. 2 or 3 years, and then they're gonna
So-
roll 10 and 10, so you're gonna have,
But I'm
You have
sorry, no,
several
I
lines
think,
of-
we gotta back up, we gotta back up.
go ahead.
What I'm hearing is one set of turnout gear costs about $4,000. I submit that does not fit the definition of capital equipment.
Okay.
The fact that you decide to buy 4 this year, or 1, or 2, is not the issue. The issue is, does an item cost more than $10,000, like a truck? Yes, it does. Does one turnout gear set cost more than $10,000? No, I don't think it fits capital budget. I mean, certainly it needs to be in the town's budget. But I
Yeah, it
don't
would
think
be,
it
it
fits
would be a
capital.
line item for, you know, the
It's
personal.
the line
protective
item for the
equipment.
general budget.
Right.
I don't think it fits capital,
And
not at
and
4,000,
are you-
5,000 apiece.
Are you dealing with an issue like where you gotta get to a certain point to get a price break? I mean, I thought it was like 8 or 10 or something like that.
Even so, that's a
No.
quantity issue,
Well, no,
it's
no.
not a capital.
No, I'm just
issue.
asking in
All right,
general
yeah,
budget.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
So,
4 might be the right quantity and you might get your best price and so on, and that's what you need right now. That doesn't make it a capital item.
Okay.
what's your thought, Chad? So it's gonna go on
Okay.
the operating budget is what you're suggesting?
The way I've done it in the past.
Yeah.
Well, we made sure when we bought it, we were spending more than $10,000, but. Because the goal was. Tax rate leveling, the goal is to try and keep a sustainable level of appropriation.
Mhm.
Having the ability to say, well, we're gonna buy. 4 every 3 years. Okay, well, now you can say, well, we have $60,000 worth of turnout gear. And in over 10 years, we only have to put $6,000 a year away, and every 3 years, when you
Right.
get to that number, you
Yeah.
go buy some. That was the goal
Right.
of that process,
Yeah.
and that's really a decision. For the committee, I mean,
Well, that's kind of what I was.
when
getting at with-
we're putting it into a reserve fund.
Yeah.
Things of that nature, because another thing that, you know, you typically wouldn't put as a capital item into a reserve fund, but like grader tires, you know, you want to replace tires on a grader, it's $12,000.
Right.
Do you want the budget to go up, the operation budget to go up $12,000 every 4 years, or, you know, I mean, that's what kind of drives you nuts.
Well, that's a good example. We've never put tires in the capital.
I'm just saying, but
budget.
they're so expensive,
We-
it's like if you're buying a set
I hear you.
of that, it's 12 grand.
I understand.
But
So
it's
the question
other
is, what do you
piece of that
recommend?
is These, something like that, SCBA's model, they have a shelf life that
Right.
is a hard cutoff.
Yes.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah, right,
gone. So
right.
if you, and from the perspective of appropriation leveling, that's why I like to include these items. in
sounds
there.
very-
It's not
question.
changed.
I mean,
So
that's
what-
my preference.
So what do you recommend here? with
I'm
turnout
saying if
gear?
we're gonna buy them in groups, and you're gonna say, we're gonna buy, you know, we're gonna have a rotation 1, rotation 2, rotation 3, and they're $15,000 each. That could, you know, if you want to apply it that way, I think that works well, and it goes into the reserve fund, and we can then properly,
So we're at
fund
you,
over
is that
time.
what you recommend?
I would recommend that.
Fine,
yes.
then let's do,
And that
then
also
let's
gives
do
you the
that.
flexibility, if for
Fine.
some reason you don't have to replace a group for whatever reason, you just doesn't, you don't need the money to go
Right.
into the reserve.
Is
bank.
the goal is to say, here's the entire fire
I
capital
think
expense that we have to spend every so many years.
Right,
And we can say, well, we're gonna put X amount of dollars into
Yeah.
that, and we really don't have to touch it other than inflation.
Yeah, so I
So,
think what
can I,
we need, go ahead, Tom.
One of the things that we have in the fire service is exclusive for the mention, is personal protective gear.
mm-hmm,
That's your turnout gear.
right,
That's also your SCBA's,
yep,
is part of that personal protective gear.
Uh-huh.
They have shelf life. SCBA's, that is by code, a shelf life on that. Your capital reserve that we're looking at, maybe we should just be saying, what do we have to have for personal protective gear, not just turnout gear, not just SCBA's, do as personal protective gear, because
Right.
that way you've got money every year as these shelf lives, because you're not
Yep.
replacing it all one shot. It's
Yep.
a rotation on it.
what do
Well,
SCBA's,
and-
what do SCBA's cost per set? Vote,
I remember we got
Honestly.
them for 1,500 a unit, but.
I'm trying to think back, I haven't cost one lately, you're probably about $9,000.
That's what I was thinking in
For
this
one
six,
set?
7,000.
Yeah.
Wow,
One unit.
so you make a
And-
great point there. If the line item in the capital budget is fire, personal protection equipment,
Yes.
your one set is over 10 grand right there.
And basically, and then what we
Yeah.
do is we say, well, you know, there's this much, we have $50,000 worth of SCBA, we have $40,000 worth of turnout gear. And those, that becomes the replacement value that starts to then feed
Yeah, yeah.
your annual appropriation.
So-
Is whether they, how they sync up. You know what I mean? Do you always replace
So here's the other
A and
thing,
B together, or is it different? That's.
They're different.
They're different.
that's
They're
what I'm
different.
getting
My
at, so.
thought is to
But-
have that line item.
You provide
For
for it.
personal protective gear.
Yep.
So there's money
Agreed.
there that this year you
Agreed.
might need to buy 3 SCBA's.
Yep.
And no
Yep.
turnout gear.
I think
Next
that's
year,
fine. That sounds like a good idea.
The idea is to have.
It's just,
a
the
bank
numbers are so
that-
big
So
cumulatively,
can you do that? Add
Yeah,
a line item
that,
to the
yeah, we will
fire
add that in.
for personal protective equipment.
And then Hugh and I will talk about
And you
the,
guys
all of the
can-
items and get the numbers in there for you.
Get the numbers in there.
And that
That's
way you'll
right.
see it
That's a good
the
idea.
next time.
All right.
Well, and I guess the other analogy, and that's good, you're going in that direction, but, you know, you stop, you didn't want to do real stuff, but. Helmet is gonna cost you $350, $400 now, right? Chainsaw, you can buy the same thing, that chainsaw doesn't have an end of shelf life on it, that helmet has an end of shelf life. It's a
Well, I was gonna
10
say, but you buy the helmet when you
10
buy the turnout gear, right? You can buy that as a
Oh.
package.
You
Well,
can, yeah.
I
So-
I would say the helmet included with personal protective
Right.
equipment.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
but I'm
especially
saying
because it's got a
things
shelf
like
life.
that,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
right.
if you-
Chainsaw's different. That's equipment. Pumps,
It's different
chainsaws.
with the
Yeah.
helmet. If you take a sharp impact against the helmet,
Right.
that helmet's junk.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It might not look.
So include the helmets with the SCBA and turnout gear in one line item.
Well, I consider that,
funding.
that is a PPE item.
That's
The
fine.
chainsaw is not, so.
Yeah, I wasn't looking to do that,
Exactly.
but just analogy of, you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
looking at these smaller items.
Yeah.
but Our stuff has end of shelf life.
I think,
Yeah.
from what I'm hearing, I think you guys are gonna have trouble syncing all of that up, because, well, no. All right.
No, I've done,
No.
actually, I did it
It'll
before.
Provide funding and it'll work.
That was the way, that's the way it was set up before, you know, the conversation, I'm glad we had this conversation about the
You guys are confident you
PPE.
can do it, then.
Yeah.
I'm at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna be able to do that.
So.
I
we're gonna
think you
see
can,
something
yeah.
that says,
All right,
next
good.
year, we're gonna do.
What
4
else do
sets
we
of
have to
this
do?
and 3 of these and 2 of these and. next
Well,
year-
again,
That's
those
it.
are two different things, because one is the overall calculation of replacement cost, okay?
Yes.
The other is, in the yellow in this part, is when you say, we're gonna go buy some.
Yeah.
I understand. No, I get
You know
it.
what I mean? So it won't, it's actually pretty simple, so
Okay,
we'll be
all right.
good.
Give it a shot, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I
got it.
agree.
Go.
So what else do we have in
Hey,
fire?
On
Are we
fire,
done with
I
fire?
don't think we have, do you have anything else in fire? Let me ask you, cause you have trailers and stuff like that. Is that stuff that we should have in here for overall replacement?
We do TV in the trailer.
Yeah.
Be on there.
So
So
we'll put that on
they're
there.
obviously brand new, so they would be replaced, I don't know, 15.
We just
20
gotta get
years
them
the future,
included in
but
the overall.
Get them
plan.
into the list. Yeah, yeah,
Into that.
agreed. What else? Anything else?
Well, if you think of anything else, we'll add it.
Oh, it's gotta be my next.
I was gonna ask about the boat,
Say again?
the boat.
That the donated, yeah, well, what kind of life does that have?
Oh, a bunch of interstates in it.
How much fishing, how much fishing gets
How much,
done out of it?
how many times does you go fishing? Yeah, right, correct. So one thing that comes to my mind, I'd like to ask you about in the fire area is, seems to me a couple of years ago, we were not including it in capital because it had not been approved by voters. This kind of thing had not been approved by voters for capital, and that was the building generator. That at some point, we were looking at the need to replace the building generator, and it was a pretty expensive item, if I remember.
Yeah, they can be 100, 200 grand.
So.
Yeah,
Sal,
so
Yeah,
I believe, if
Yeah.
I'm not wrong,
we looked at this.
you guys did, and that was actually falling in under the EMD portion of John's job when he was doing that.
Correct.
To look at all the facilities.
All the generators for all the.
All right. we can include it under EMD, yeah.
Yeah.
But now you're EMD as well, right?
No,
Oh.
it's George Lazarus and Bill Bellion.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So you may wanna look at, because when John Hennessy was here, he and I looked at it and we said, you know, we don't have do we ever get the service contract?
going for that? No. So right now, we have generators that have no service contract,
Oh, boy,
and we don't know the useful life on it, we don't know if they
Right.
work.
right.
So somebody's gotta, grab that and say, generators, what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
Cause I know when, my
Yeah.
first,
We had a-
my first introduction to that
Excuse me,
part of it was
We
when,
had a quote, excuse me, we had a quote for somebody to come and actually do service on them, right?
I have the quote. Yep.
Okay, and it's
Who do we
very,
use?
very inexpensive. It was like $1,500 a year or something.
Right.
So we should implement that, just get that
I
done.
thought we did.
I thought we did too. Have
I'm
somebody show up
sorry to
and
hear we didn't.
actually service it and say, here's what's going on, and then we'll get a feel for what's going.
Yeah.
yeah, cause I had just, when we were having a conversation about telephones and Hugh goes, well, we gotta have a copper line because our generator doesn't always fire. I'm like, that's not a good plan.
I tried, but I know we had done it, but, so I think, Chet, what we need to do is we
Yep.
need to purchase that service contract. get that
Absolutely.
going,
And then we
at
gotta
least
look at a
know-
replacement
we'll
value
know
of what we're,
we're
what we have and what we have to do.
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
And then we
because,
can look at-
like ours, for instance.
Thanks for reminding
It's
me.
undersized,
Thanks for reminding.
because if you come in, there's no power, and you don't go over and shut the flame
Yeah.
breaker off.
It's,
For the exhaust.
it's
system,
crazy,
You shut the whole.
So
thing
that
off.
That's
discussion,
another crazy thing, Chet, that you'll learn about.
that discussion reminds me of something. however.
It's like a new, it's like, I swear I'm waking up in the movie 51st Dates and there's something new, like everything's new every day.
There's never no one in the great state of. Honey.
No, look, I think that over the last couple of years, we've uncovered a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
it's really
yeah.
got much more.
And you know what?
There's something. we just don't know what
What's
it is.
great is, we're moving into a little more advanced calculation so we can get a little more information, but the fact that we had the base that we had has been huge.
Right, right.
So, what we started with last year definitely set the stage for.
Definitely helped, yeah.
And that was a major-
Put out to you, Chat.
Yep.
Come time to get replacement cost on these generators. You need to pay careful attention to the transfer switches.
Yep.
Because Enfield at the Public Works, that was through grants. And the company that got the bid was $3,000 less than any other bid, so they got the bid. That generator has to run under load once a week to keep the battery backup to the transfer.
Well, I know that all the ones that we had, they run once a week, but mostly for an internal test.
They run once a week test run,
Right,
but because they use the cheaper transfer switch
okay.
that has an internal battery not connected to your
Gotcha.
circuits to charge
Understand.
it, only gets charged when the
Yeah.
generator runs.
Yeah.
It's $6,000 for the upgrade on it. So that generator now had to run for a minimum 20 minutes per week under full load to reset the transfer switch.
Anyway,
So these are things that,
Yeah, there's a lot of study to be done, but I think if we get the service contract in place and we get somebody who comes and looks at all this stuff and says.
And
Get some juice running.
Then.
well, the thing is when you look at how we had wired the pumps out under the lean-to and you go, oh my
I
God.
don't wanna know nothing.
Okay,
So,
so I think we're done with fire. We gotta go to police.
And,
I know Ryan,
Can you message him or anything, or?
he had a conflict, so he doesn't need anything in 2025.
So, well, so
So we have to-
you have some communication what he needs, wait a minute. Okay, let's move on to, let's talk police. Carrie might be able to help us here. So, Carrie, you've communicated with, Ryan, is that correct?
Correct.
And tell us what he said.
They do not need a cruiser in 2025. That one that was slated for next year can be pushed back to 26.
Because of its condition or why?
The condition's still good.
It's still in good shape.
I guess, so are you saying we're gonna roll them all back 1 year or?
Hey, that's-
Find
Just-
two in 1 year?
Just that one.
I just moved the one back. Cause basically it keeps the appropriations the same. Whether we buy it next year or not, and we just can
Hear
save
ya.
the money and earn
So-
interest on it,
So
so,
it's just delay 1 year.
right.
So that
And
would
it would
be
show two in the following year.
Yeah, and that's what I just put in here.
Yeah.
Actually,
Okay,
you
okay,
can't see
that's-
it, but
that's
that's
what
what's in
you're
there.
That's fine.
Well, it could be that a year from now, he'll say, oh, we can move another one. in a year.
Right.
That's
Well,
all
I
right.
think, yeah,
All
well,
right.
that's why I wanted
But
to.
for now,
That's
yeah,
why I
yeah.
was looking
Said it
for
was
a
all right.
mechanics report.
Yep.
If we get a mechanics report on the status of the
Right,
police
sure,
vehicles.
sure.
You know, if we can tie those two together, it's really gonna help us make decisions, so, you know.
Well, I know that I had
Let's
talked to
get-
Guy, I had
get
talked to
Guy,
Guy,
beat
he was,
him up with it.
Guy's supposed to be, he had said he would come and do the same thing, and
Okay.
I think he's on the calendar for the 28th.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
So on your capital worksheet, I
Yes.
think I had a question on. You show in fiscal year 25 a $48,000
Appropriation,
expenditure, I presume?
Yep.
So you're gonna take that out, you're gonna move that a year.
no,
No,
because you're basically gonna just hold that money for a year and buy two is what you're planning.
But-
So you don't
Two
change
different
the
things.
appropriation.
No, I didn't say the appropriation, I said the expense. You show, I think I'm looking.
Oh, I've
at-
already moved it.
You
I did-
moved it.
I moved
Already
it.
did, fine.
You see where I got the red there with the two?
That's what I was looking at. Got it.
Because basically all I did was
Got it.
take the yellow, put the new
Got it.
date in and
All
move
right.
it over.
And you moved it over, all right, fine. What about EMD? You mentioned two other folks who are looking over that.
Well, George
and-
had some surgery and he's been, I know Bill's been kind of managing it right now and I haven't
What
talked
do
to
we
him
have, what do
about
they,
the ambulance.
what do we have in
I mean,
that
about the-
category? What falls under EMD?
Well, the only thing that would fall under them as far as this goes would be basically the generators.
right, if we don't even have that. it's-
And that's
Are
not,
they
that's
even
never
on the
been
list?
an item, no, so that's something we need to
Not
add.
even on the
I mean,
list
I
yet?
think that's part of, because buildings never were part of this either, I think that's why that
Right,
did that.
Yep.
So we will have that added.
All right,
okay.
And then I got whoever we're dealing with, who gave us a quote for generators, we could have them come in, evaluate, tell us what a replacement cost is. What are we under 100 KW with that generator?
Yeah. Well, the thought, there's one laying around.
Is it, now let me ask you a question, does that feed this building?
You don't even want to touch that thing. That thing got disconnected because it wasn't running right.
Well, I'm saying, maybe they'll take it away.
Yeah,
But this, the one, is that for this building?
there's, two.
Yeah.
One runs the fire department, the other runs the ambulance and the EOC and PD.
Does anything run out to the highway?
So you're gonna need,
Well, the reason I ask is it's much easier to have an opportunity to get some grant monies when it's for public safety.
right?
You know what I mean? That's typically like you have a shot, you know, you're not gonna get anything where for your.
you won't get it for
highway
highways, but there's two of them. that run
Right,
this building.
and that's what we
All
need to
public
look at,
safety.
yeah, so that's,
Yeah,
that will
there's
be something we
also
need to
none
look
that
for.
run-
See,
none-
we
none
got,
for your building.
Enfield got it for the public works up there.
Yeah.
Through grant, because that was at the time was your emergency management,
Okay,
headquarters.
headquarters, okay.
But our highway department is not our, so.
This,
yeah,
this
yeah,
room
yeah.
actually is,
This room is,
Yeah.
but not the
Yeah.
highway department,
No.
yeah.
so those having and getting so we gotta get a status report and a replacement cost of where our generator is so that we can start figuring
I
out
don't
how
think
we
you
can
have
get
one
that
in the
fixed.
town hall.
No, we do not.
No.
We know that from the lightning strike.
That's one
Yeah.
of them, you can maybe, well, what I'm saying is maybe one of the ones that's playing around here can wind up going over there. And then you're gonna need a new one for public safety, which
That
gets you the
town
grant.
hall is actually
Huh?
supposed to be the backup EOC, so.
Say again?
That town hall
Yeah,
is supposed to be a backup EOC point.
Ah, good point,
Cause we're supposed to be able to come out of this room and go down there and operate.
Good
just like
point.
They're supposed to be able to come out of there and operate.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, is we need one.
yeah.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah.
We need one is the point.
Now, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Which- I have a question which I think we will need to take an action to go learn more about. And it's about the state of New Hampshire's rules on capital reserves, capital equipment. And what the voters in this town have approved in the past at town meeting. What I mean is, the voters in this town approved a capital reserve budget to buy police cruisers. They approved a capital reserve fund. They approved a capital reserve fund to buy fire department vehicles, highway department vehicles. But I don't believe there's ever been voter approval of a capital reserve fund to buy things like generators. I'm not opposed to buying them. I'm just saying, I'm not sure. I think we might need to ask some more informed opinions about whether or not we need a warrant article to create a capital reserve fund.
Well, the question
An
will be,
official one for generators.
Right.
In the past, that has fallen under each individual equipment for fire department, equipment for police department.
But it wasn't in
equipment
capital
for
reserves,
fire.
though.
It,
It did fall in those categories, and yes,
yeah,
we,
it wasn't generalized for the town, it was general, it was by department.
by department, I agree.
For expenditure.
But I'm not sure you quite, my question is about the specific voter authorization required in the state of New Hampshire to have a bank account. It's called the police cruiser capital reserve. We don't have voter authorization, I don't think, for a bank account called generators capital
And-
reserves.
And
That's all.
the
We need to
clarif-
find out more about that.
Yeah,
the
but-
clarification will be that whether or
Or
not,
by
depending on
department, I
how,
hear you, or by department.
It will-
Yeah, yeah,
By department.
by
equipment.
department, maybe.
I
Yeah.
think
Well,
what
there's that.
happens is The terminology gets.
Yeah,
Gets intertwined, where the capital reserve fund, and then it gets dragged over to means like this capital reserve fund, because there's different stipulations, like mobile police cruisers, for example, it's like a $5,000, it has to have an expected lifespan of more than
We've
5
upped that to
years,
10 now, so you'll know. Yeah, yeah.
and things like that, but
Right.
that's the state's
Mm.
regulation on it, not yours.
No,
You
no,
have a-
we decided the five, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but what you, so what the state
ahead.
has specific, it's not just, you can't just throw capital reserves out for anything.
No, you can't.
And
Agreed.
It's gonna have
Agreed.
to be what
What the voters approved it for.
you write your warrant article for states in the stipulations of the RSA versus mobile versus stationary.
Stationary
equipment.
equipment, okay, all right.
and
So all I'm saying is
and
we
really-
need
yeah,
to
we
be
need to
sure
look at-
we're gonna look into that to be sure we're within the rules, that's all.
correct, and we have a buildings,
We do have a
Reserve fund.
buildings capital reserve
and
fund.
my assumption is,
That
if
it
there
would
was
fit in
any
there?
place that
Oh,
it would
maybe,
fit,
okay.
that's where it would end up.
It might fit there, yeah.
But we just gotta confirm how it was written and does
Yep.
that, can we
That's all
make
I'm
that
saying.
apply? But that basically is building backup.
That's all I'm saying,
So
yeah.
it's a facilities issue, so I think that's where it's gonna fit.
Stationary Item, it's part of
Right,
each specific building.
Yes, it
Right.
is.
But
Yeah,
what you gotta
yeah.
be careful is you vote money in, you vote money out.
Right, correct.
not on all of them. Some of them are vote in, some of them are select board, depending on how it was written.
Depending on how it's set up.
Well, to my knowledge, the ones we have in this town
But a
right now,
A true capital reserve. Voted in, voted out.
correct. The ones I'm aware of in this town right now, police, fire, highway, buildings and bridges are what you just said.
No,
Vote in and vote out.
Bridges is not vote out.
Oh, bridges is not,
No.
agreed.
And
Sorry,
every-
sorry.
And I'm not, and I think there's one other
Agreed,
one.
agree, I'm
The
sorry, you're
select
right.
board can do it.
Yeah,
And-
yeah, yeah.
And you can write
But
the
the other
article either
ones,
way.
though, the other ones, you was right, it's
Right.
vote in and out. You could perhaps propose to change that at the next.
Well, it
town
depends on
meeting,
what it is. 'Cause
but-
because the one issue that we are talking about for this year is creating a paving reserve fund, because
There you go.
that way we have some balance. But that one should not be, and I also, and the one that I would say we should change is the equipment one, because it's. You tie yourself in 6 months before you're gonna go buy something, you can't negotiate, you can't, like, and it's like, how can the select board then?
Yeah.
The select board has to, because you're gonna have a bid process, the select board has to be able to say, well, we went over by $6,000, they can borrow 6,000, they get 6,000 more out or something. It's, that makes it a little bit tight, and the paving would be the same thing, because we had that issue this year where we ended up $20,000 over. It was in the
Clarification.
operation side, but if we create a reserve fund, it needs to be able to be expended by the select board.
I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
Clarification, you just said the equipment one.
Yeah.
We have 3 equipment ones. Fire
No,
equipment, police,
the main,
what did
the
you mean?
main, I mean, the main one, the highway.
Highway
the-
department.
The.
for
the
highway
equipment one, yeah.
vehicles. So you.
Because
would
when we were
suggest
buying the trucks, that one in my view
Okay.
should be select board should be able to expend that.
that
Because it
same-
just would be so, they're gonna have to go through the process anyway.
Yeah. That same logic might apply to fire
Well,
and fire.
the only one
There's
that-
a lead time.
The only one that jumps out at me is the one we just went through.
Yeah.
with The stuff we're doing, so I just
You
think.
might
that
find
might be
fire
a
the
thing.
same way though, long lead times.
And it may
Well,
be,
see, I went through that in Enfield on one occasion where they put in a budget number, warrant article, voted the warrant article. And they said, this article is for you to buy a new 1.5 ton truck, plow truck, and the new backhoe. Here's your bottom line number. I said, so where are the quotes to get this bottom line number? We just picked a number.
yeah, no.
No, that doesn't.
Now-
We found out 2 years ago that doesn't work.
I had to do some shuffling and
Sure,
some
sure.
spec changes
But,
and everything. And I
Yeah.
came in with the number,
We found a way to make it work, but that's not right.
Yeah, it's just,
So-
it doesn't, and I think and it all goes back to the town having some solid policies. You know, and our purchasing policy, we need to update it, and that way we say, well, this is exactly how it's gonna work. So that the voters are okay with, we'll put the money in the reserve fund, and then the select board can expend it for the correct thing, because we have to follow this other process after the vote. Because I asked the attorney when we were talking about it, was, okay, so can we write in there not to exceed and put like a 20% buffer? And they said, yeah, you can kind of, but it's really not as good on in a warrant article to do it that way. So it probably is best to just put in the specific amount of money and allow it to be expended by the select board. And the paving will be the first conversation
Right,
about
right,
that.
right. Okay,
I'm
If
gonna
I-
forward you the status that John Hennessy and I did on all of the generators and.
Perfect.
good,
Thank
good.
you.
I'm gonna suggest
I just got that, Carrie Ann just sent it to me, Generators Connect. And it's from
Hey, that's the cool-
$1,600 to $2,400 a year for a service contract. Now, that's a year and a half old, but it's not that big a number.
that, that sounds
This is
like it's
more of
worth
a
doing.
Status of the bill, where the generator is, what
Right.
it looks like, blah, 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 so.
Good,
I'll
good.
send that to you.
I think that we want to spend a few minutes to talk about the future meetings, items 3 and 4 on the agenda.
Jordan, you and you don't.
Yeah,
have to sit around
yeah,
this.
that's right. Jordan and you don't need
Thank
to
you for
stay.
your help today, by the way.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Here,
We just
Unless
need a
you're,
few
unless
minutes.
you're in need of some
Dinner.
sleep or something, you know.
I don't know what I need.
minutes. Okay, so as you can see, the future meeting dates are every 2 weeks, starting now. 2 weeks from now, and so on and so on, every Wednesdays at 4 o'clock. Everybody's still okay with that, I hope?
Yep. And I
Okay,
and we had our meeting last week with the staff, and I gave everybody the dates as to when they're coming.
okay,
So I
good,
think we're good.
good, good. And that leads into number 4, what you just said, that next time, August 28th, we expect to have the first, at least as well as we can, the highway vehicles and cemeteries. A
Right.
little bit of extra on cemeteries. Highway vehicles is a big one. I would ask that if you get a chance to do more preparation with the highway department
Mhm.
than you had been able to do before this meeting.
Yep.
I know you were on vacation for a week, et cetera,
Yeah.
but
We'll get there.
if you could have the highway vehicles more well defined on this, in the spreadsheet for us to look at, that would be good.
Actually, on the spreadsheet, I think they're actually okay right now, but I guess gotta go through and double check.
All right.
And I'll go
and
through
double
that
check.
with
good.
Bob, and then we'll also, I gotta get with Guy.
Good. Okay, then we'll look at road reconstruction and buildings on the following meeting on the 11th. And then highway and so on, just as it shows on the agenda
Yep.
page here. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Is there any other business?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Oh, I don't.
Okay.
Thank you all for your help.